You're listening to Life of the Record, classic albums told by the people who made them. My name is Dan Nordheim. Deerhoof initially formed in San Francisco in 1994 by Rob Fisk, with Greg Saunier joining him 1 week later. They signed to Kill Rock Stars, and in 1995, Satomi Matsuzaki joined as lead vocalist. In 1997, they released their debut album, The Man, the King, the Girl. After their second album, Holy Pause, was released in 1999, Fisk left the band, and guitarist John Dieterich joined later that year. They released Half-Bird in 2001, with Reveille following in 2002. At this point, Chris Cohen joined the band, and they released Apollo in 2003 and Milkman in 2004. For their seventh album, they decided to record for several months in their rehearsal space, resulting in a double album. The Runners 4 was eventually released in 2005. In this episode, Greg Saunier, Satomi Matsuzaki, John Dieterich, and Chris Cohen reflect on how the album came together. This is the making of The Runners 4.
Hi, this is Satomi. I sing and I play bass in Deerhoof.
This is Greg. I play drums in Deerhoof.
This is Chris Cohen. I used to play guitar and bass in Deerhoof.
Hi, this is John Dieterich, and I play guitar in Deerhoof. I remember it was like we did an all-nighter, and it was like 5 a.m, and it was just starting to get light out. We were in the Tenderloin, and I would look out the window, and there's a guy peeing on the street exactly as we're finishing the record. I just remember.
What did that make you feel?
It was very strong. It made me feel like I wanted to go home. That's what I wanted. And go to sleep.
Yeah.
I remember that, when we were mixing, Runners 4 at the very end, and, like we totally finished. And maybe, John, you saw this guy peeing outside because it's Tenderloin, And then
Yeah.
I remember Chris and I went out to get juice or something to the corner store, and it was morning, and, we were like, like, so nice, it's over, I remember that.
I seem to remember not leaving the chair in front of Pro Tools for 13 hours. I did not go to the bathroom or eat or nap 13 hours straight. I remember thinking that at the end, and it occurring to me that I must have set some record.
That is sad. That's a sad story.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you were expecting there. This is going to be nothing but sob stories
Yeah,
for this
exactly.
whole thing.
Weeping, immune systems crumbling.
We had one reprieve, which was we were invited to play Ladyfest Honolulu and given the opportunity to stay for an extra 2 days. And it was like basically we saw the sun for the first time in several months because it was winter. So the sun was rising late and setting early. And we would go in there to a windowless practice room the entire day. It was like a full-time job.
Yeah.
I remember it almost like it was like a whole year or something. Does anybody know actually how long we did that?
I don't.
Green Cosmos came out the same dang year, so it couldn't have been the full year.
Okay.
Just felt like.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was more than just winter, though. I mean, I remember, I don't know. I felt like it was just kind of like.
Maybe it was like 8 months or something.
Yeah.
But we just decided, like, as part of the idea, like, okay, like basically 9 to 5. Monday through Friday, we're going to go in there and do this. And then, of course, people are working on stuff on the weekends as well, because it's like, that's your only time to have any time to yourself.
I think the Runners 4 was a heightened time. We didn't even have time to talk about anything, other than the music, That's what we did, like just a stretch, like we get home and work on music and then go to bed, So other than that, we were with Chris and John whole
Family
time.
of
So we were
choice.
like, just like, boot camp, It's just, so much focus.
I mean, I'm so proud of it, and I think that we managed it really well as 4 people. And had any of us not been as easygoing as we are, I think it would have never worked, and it would have been a total catastrophe. But I still have feelings of regret, of lost time, of lost life. I don't want to overdo the metaphor, but of the boot camp, but it did have a feeling of like you put your life on hold. It was madness.
In pencil lines, the pages passed, idea maps were being drawn over the world.
Well, Greg, you were the first one in the band.
I was the second one in the band, but the first one currently present at this podcast.
Did Rob start it without you?
Yeah, it was a harmonica solo.
Oh, I never knew that.
Yeah. Do you remember Epicenter?
Yeah.
He made duplicated 5 copies, brought them to a wicker basket that sat in Epicenter. I'm not sure if they were free or for sale, but I was immediately interested. Then it was nice, and then Satomi joined.
I don't know how I've never heard that story before. I've never heard of Epicenter even.
Epicenter's gone.
Oh, yeah. Epicenter was great.
Yeah.
My favorite, yeah.
It was like Valencia, the San Francisco like punk rock record shop.
I think it was probably dead by the time I moved there.
Yeah, it was great. Then Satomi joined. We were practicing in our kitchen at the time. Even in those days, rent could sometimes be challenging, and paying 2 rents was completely unconscionable. So, chopsticks on drums, bass through a practice amp, and then Satomi joined.
Yeah. And then John joined.
And then Chris joined.
Yeah, we got to fast forward.
This is going to take all day if we go like this. Come on.
Yeah. So I moved out to California in 1999, and
Tell the veggie burger story. Tell the veggie burger story.
I am not telling the veggie burger story.
Oh!
Okay, there was a veggie burger when I was moving out. We were in Montana, and I went to a restaurant, and I ordered a veggie burger, and it was a hamburger with lettuce and tomato. But yeah, I moved out in 99, and basically I was going to school out there, and that's where I met Greg, and we just started playing music after class for each other, and would start, it was right when Rob and Kelly were about to move to Alaska, so that's sort of how I jumped in.
And this was John and Greg were students at Mills College.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was not a student there, but I was auditing this class there that was taught by Fred Frith.
Wait, is that true?
Yeah. And somebody was like, oh, yeah, that guy from Deerhoof's having his senior recital. It was like after this class. And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, I'll go check that out. And I went, and I was so into it. And then became...
Wait, was that my...
That was yours, Greg.
What?
Yeah.
I had a broken leg. I couldn't even play drums at that thing. John was playing drums.
I think, okay, yeah.
It was both, but it was mostly
I remember you both playing, but it was in the classroom, and it was just like just a great rock concert just in a classroom. I was so blown away. And then I was like, just became like the #1 Deerhoof fan and went to every show, and then I just pestered them with cassettes of my band.
Which at the time was Dyna Thought Imagination Band.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Right. And I got Deerhoof to play some shows with us. Well, John, you went to Spain or something for 2 months? And I got Greg and Satomi to join the Curtains.
I went to Europe with Gorge Trio, I think.
Oh, right, Europe. Yeah.
Oh.
Right, so there was like a little lull for Deerhoof, and I was like, I swooped in and got Greg and Satomi to join my band. And then when John came back, John and I started playing together in Natural Dreamers. And then you guys eventually let me join Deerhoof.
You joined.
Well, no, I think an invitation was extended
Yeah, but I mean, we had a jam sesh at John's house where we did like some free improv.
I have those recordings.
I have those too. Yeah, I have CDRs of it. We should listen to it together.
Yeah.
I transferred it off of DAT a few years ago.
Oh, nice.
I remember when John joined the band, he was like a kind of like, can you please join the band kind of feeling. And with Chris, I feel like you were already in the band when I just kind of like turned around, like, whoa,
I just snuck in.
No, it's so like, we were so integrated, we became friends.
Oh, that's nice.
Right. You were just there, It
was like magic.
I just worked my way in. But I really, I love Deerhoof so much. It was my dream. It was like my life dream to join.
We were already all at the same shows anyway. We went to every show Chris played with his band, and then he would come to all the Deerhoof shows.
Yeah. So. We came together in, what year was that? 2002 or something?
2000.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was right before Reveille came out. Reveille was recorded. Right. You guys were in the process of finishing Reveille when I joined. And then we did some touring before, like when that came out, so.
We were working really fast. Like I said a minute ago, Green Cosmos came out earlier the same year that Runners 4 came out, and Milkman came out only a few months before Green Cosmos. It all ran together. I mean, we were putting out music at a very fast clip. And one of the side effects of doing that is that you can shortchange the creative process. Only the ideas that can be explained really fast or learned to play them really quickly survive that kind of, meat grinder process or whatever. And this one, we were absolutely adamant. I think it was the three of you were adamant to me about, let's slow down, take our time. And I tended to write songs that I could teach the three of you really fast. And 5 minutes later, we had a take and it was done. But you guys were like, what about songs that take longer to develop? And we have to play them a while before they start to take shape. And we aren't totally sure what it is we want yet. And I think it was, a chance for that kind of personal expression, like more secret expressions, things that were underneath the surface that hadn't gotten a chance to really form in our more rushed pace before that.
I don't know if you all will agree with this, but I felt like at the time, Deerhoof was I had this sense of we're kind of on the rise and we need to we're going to step up our game. And I remember this whole talk about double album. We got to really, we're really trying to prove ourselves or something. It was really, we had this kind of the mentality of it is hard for me to get back. It's hard for me to relate to that now. But at the time, I really think just whatever age we were at and the timing of it, it felt very we were just desperate.
I mean, to me, I agree. It's hard to connect the resulting audio and songwriting to any idea of this being our bid for superstardom.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I think all the Deerhoof albums are like that.
Well, the way you just said, Chris, made it sound like we knew it was going to be double before we even started, which I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I trust you.
Yeah, I remember talking about that. I think it was sort of like a plan. We're going to really stretch out. Everybody's going to bring in their songs.
Well, that
we're
I
gonna,
certainly remember.
Try everything and I remember, you and John were listening, and Satomi probably too. You're all listening to all this 70s mild stuff, and you're we're going to really.
Oh, that was all Satomi.
We're going to really stretch out.
Actually. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I just remember a lot of talk about Miles. And we're gonna really, we're gonna really get into stretching out and playing, and a lot of
Live Evil,
kind of open up the palette of sounds with effects that we had never really allowed or never used in Deerhoof before. I remember that was a conscious thing before we started.
Yeah,
as I recall.
And I think I just remembered. I think most of the time, almost all the time, everything was recorded on headphones. So that not only were we in a windowless space, but we were also we weren't really it was just everything was,
it wasn't just simulators. Headphones. You guys were on pods. Yeah,
amp simulators.
Satomi and John were both playing guitar.
Yeah.
Chris was on bass kind of at the other end of the room. with a mic on it, but the guitars were not audible to anyone else in this rehearsal studio. It probably just sounded like a big drum solo, every day for 8 months, 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think the thing about the pods, if I remember correctly, it was like that was what allowed us to do it in a practice space because we didn't, we were like, we're not going to have any separation.
Yep.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
That was what let us do it at the practice space, which was, by the way, this practice space was called Soundwave. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Well done.
It's called something else now, but it's still there.
Wow.
And I don't really understand how we did it because we shared that space with no doctors, didn't we?
What it was it was the 9 to 5 thing because it was just the practice space was pretty empty.
Work.
Yeah, we would go in there when no one else was there, and I don't remember there was never a struggle for time in there. Yeah, it was like John and I, we lived in the same building,
Right.
and we would like get in the car. John was the only one with the car in the band, and like we would get in your car, go to the West Oakland BART station, pick up Greg and Satomi, and I would be carrying your iMac on my lap every single day. We brought the iMac back and forth to the practice. John's. It was one of those ones, like, remember the ones that were like a
bulbous
like
one.
a dome
That
with
had
like
flowers on the side?
and then this. It had kind of like a neck on it, where the screen is sticking out of this dome.
Oh yeah,
And it was like swiveling around, and it was just that was like in my lap. Greg and
Every
Satomi
day.
would get in the back seat, West Oakland BART every morning at like 9 a.m. But it was very like every day was the same. It was like
Yeah.
it was just like really like a job. It was. I mean, I think we had like a work ethic. Like it was sort of maybe felt guilty about quitting our jobs or something, and we were like, we have to make this real or something.
Which we had recently done. You're right.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, we recently quit our jobs, so we were like, we were going for it.
Story time in your wildest mind. What a wonderful magic animal. Mother to child, singing along. Song, set sail, seaworthy vessel.
Chatterboxes. It was like you had this demo, and the sound on the demo was so nice. And then I remember we tried it for like ages in the space. I'm like, this sounds nowhere near as good as what John just did at home. There was something about the crackle of the distortion on your original thing that we just struggled forever to try and recreate. And then finally we got it in the end, and there was this like kind of going.
John made it melody line and also the lyrics, so everything.
You can kind of tell a John vocal melody.
Yeah,
It's like
super
almost
hard to
completely
sing and,
unsingable.
like, yeah, that's always my issue. I end up writing things that are almost impossible to sing. It's like, oh no, but it seems fine. Like, I can do it, and I can't even really do it. And it's like, yeah.
I was really impressed with your lyrics on that song. I thought they were very beautiful. They kind of reminded me, it was almost like early impressions of your now wife's linguistics.
That's what it
linguistics studies,
Yep. Yeah.
Is that true? Is that what it was?
No, that is true. Yeah.
We never discussed it.
Yeah. So my wife's a linguist, and she had been doing these projects around language documentation and preservation work, and so
language loss.
Yeah. And so it was sort of thinking about that.
The song kind of has that sort of like, I don't know, it has like a magic twinkle of like a secret. And I think a lot of the songs ended up being about that. It was like speaking in code. We thought of ourselves as speaking in code to our own audience, like in a secret language that the authorities couldn't comprehend. It would basically go under their radar. And that idea of like a surviving secret code. So I think that's one reason why we wanted to put that song first, was it kind of like spelled out, I don't know, for me, it sort of spelled out that theme.
Right.
Plus there were no drums on it. And it's like the album was so dang long that it was like, if we started with some heavy rocker or whatever, it was just going to like, people are going to be like so tired, I mean, our first record, The Man, the King, the Girl, does start with an intro to the first song that's like has no drums and it's, has no beat. But the album did so poorly that ever since then, I did have an inferiority complex. I admit it, Chris, you were right. It was like, boy, the first song had better be a barnstormer. So yeah, this felt like a big risk. This one doesn't grab you by the lapels, right from the first track. We were trying to be brave.
I mean, I think the music of our, who we perceived as our peers at that time also was pretty aggro and
right.
And loud and full
Definitely.
all the time, So, I mean, just to put it in the context of music that was happening in the Bay Area and stuff, I think, maybe this felt like it felt like a bigger move at the time, maybe than it would seem now.
Totally.
It seemed like different to do that, I guess.
And I also think that was part of the idea of the record too, that like, not only we're going to have this long record, are we going to have all these different peaks and valleys or whatever, but also like, sort of, it was very intentional that we wanted to explore different aspects of ourselves. Like, it was okay to have something without drums. It was okay to like basically kind of take the blinders off,
We went to like slow start and like slow pace beginning. You're going to have to settle in. It's kind of like the beginning of 2001. It's like, okay, guys, this is not going to be a fast-paced movie, like kind of relax, slow down your breathing, and settle in because it can be a longer story. When we play it now, like, okay, and I come in with the first snare drum hit, and Satomi does a big jump, and I remember one time we played a music festival in Seattle. I had just bought a new snare head that day because the old one was starting to get old, and I was worried that it might break. So I got a completely new head at some music store in Seattle, and we set up. And we get on stage. It's so exciting. There's a huge crowd. And we start with Twin Killers, okay? And it's building and building. And then, and then I hit the snare. Satomi does the jump. And I hit the first snare hit instantly. The head's broken. One hit, one note. And then we had to stop the show, find a new snare drum or like put on a new head or whatever. Like, basically, it's meant to be very loud. And I think that at the time, we struggled so much with how to make the drums or the band sound loud in our mixes. And we were in this completely deadened, like carpeted, practice space. The sound didn't travel anywhere and it had no character whatsoever. And it's like, we were so deep into it and had overworked all of this stuff to such an insane degree that I think we thought we were making a really heavy sounding drum sound. And I listen to it now. I'm like, tink,
cute
like
sounding.
The drum does not sound like Def Leppard or, Metallica or, just sounded like nothing.
Top of the train, pretty.
Well, the intro was John's. That was all John's thing.
Yep.
Then it just got pasted on. And it was like almost unrelated, in a different key, a different tempo, a different emotion. And it's like, oh, this will be perfect.
Right.
But I do remember it coming together pretty quickly.
Yeah, that one was fast.
That one wasn't super hard.
Actually, I remember writing the chorus at home. Satomi and I had a TV at the time, and I remember there was some award show. It was like the Grammys or something. It was one of these kinds of things, or like a country music awards or something. And you know how those are. It's like somebody sings a song and then there's a special guest comes on and takes one verse or whatever. And it's like not someone who was on the original song, but then, they're there because they're accepting an award for some other thing later in the program, and everybody stands up and cheers. And I remember just thinking like, maybe it was like Sheryl Crow was playing. And I remember switching the TV off. I didn't know the song, and I wanted to switch it off before I had memorized what her song was. And I'm like, okay, like the sound of Sheryl Crow is swimming around in my head. I'm like, I want to write a song that would be perfect for an award show. And that's how I made up the melody of the chorus. It was like the kind of bluesy thing or whatever. And then people ended up covering it. It's like there was some really good covers appeared online that really touched me a lot, because I felt that my fantasy of the song was somehow understood. You know what I mean? It became what I sort of hoped it would be.
Yeah, that's from my middle school. I had, twin sisters, friends, who kind of, stopped hanging out with me one day, and I was feeling
conspiracy.
Yeah, I still, it was very strong memory, So I'm like, oh, it's gonna be fun to write a, revenge, revenge, song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me, it's like you're In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins. Supposedly that's like the revenge
diss track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You and Phil.
Yeah. I remember like one day, like I don't know what, but I come in late or something to this recording session, and then you guys were playing Running Thoughts, that the drum and bass part. Yeah, I'm like, that sounds so cool, Maybe I just went to bathroom and then I don't know what happened, but yeah, it was really cool. The bass and drum felt so good.
I feel like it was my lyrics.
I think it is, yeah.
I don't know where I got the idea, like the speedboat.
I think we had the title Runners 4 before. I remember Running Thoughts being like, okay, I'm going to keep, you were riffing on what we already had for a title, I think.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Satomi had written a song called Spiral Golden Town that was about being a band in San Francisco. And I think I was like trying to, maybe take the self-mythologizing, maybe a step further and like, the band's actual existence into the lyrics of the song. And I think actually all of us ended up doing that with various songs on this record. A lot of the lyrics are actually about the band, and about our ability or inability to get along and work together and stuff. And this one was more just like, describing the band as these sort of like outlaws or something, who travel around and spit this secret code at people that the mainstream can't possibly understand, but that everyone who's present, gets it. Through their precious load, cheating
I remember I thought of this song. I thought of it as like krautrock or something. I don't know why. Kind of just
well,
that it's like
it was droning
it's
on
repetitive.
one note. On
it's like repetitive.
Yeah,
and
your part was repetitive.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking of like Can or something.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was like the exact opposite of that. I was trying to play because Jackie Liebzeit would play the same drum beat over and over for 10 minutes, without the slightest variation. I was trying to do like fake, Jack DeJohnette or Tony Williams or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trying to do like maximum non-repetition, maximum syncopation of variety and try to play jazzy. It was driving. I mean, we had, what ended up on the record is like a 3-minute slice out of hours of like droning on this one note.
Yeah. And then, John, did you play guitar for this?
Yeah. I had this like
From
I
Corey.
think it was, was it I thought it was Casio.
No,
Yeah,
Corey was the name of the human being who lent it to you. Corey from Shushu, who was in Shushu at the time.
Ah, that's true. Yeah. It was a Casio keyboard guitar with plastic strings, and that thing was cool.
Yeah,
and like
cool.
they had sounds that would just like sustain forever if you wanted. So you could do
like
these sort of organ tones,
exactly.
and it had like 12 sounds or something. But I had totally forgotten about that. It's hard to play well because the articulation is really weird.
And it doesn't have any dynamic. So it's like if you even slightly hit the wrong fret or something, it's like,
yeah, totally.
That one took so much editing.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but Chris, didn't you say you wanted to play bass for this album?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if I really remember
I
either,
don't
but I
remember
remember being really into the idea of playing bass. I definitely wanted to, but I can't remember how that started.
I think it was at your instigation.
Yeah.
Okay.
But because Apollo, you guys played like twin guitar kind of,
Right.
just very together. And I think we wanted to do something different, and, you are just always like, adventurous, like, I'll try out this and that. So, and I said, that might be fun to play guitar,
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds right.
Right. And I think the effects and stuff, I think some of that was also like you, Satomi, basically being, I want to make some crazy sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I got fancy pod, right?
Yeah,
like
a floor
guitar
pod.
Yeah.
one. So, and I could make a lot of like funny sounds and stuff. So, so that was experimental and and I think like Chris's bass playing so different from me. It just brought out such a different rhythm.
Baby, baby, high five. Baby, baby, say hi. Little, little ones wanna meet now. Take my hands now. Walk to where you like. Streets of flowers.
That's mine. Yeah, I bought this small pearl guitar, acoustic guitar, and then it's just my first try to make song with acoustic guitar, and I just
Not a bad first try.
I wanted to try acoustic guitar because I thought that was cool. Yeah.
I remember Satomi, you played out in the hallway.
Yeah.
Remember that?
That's right, because no one was there.
Yeah.
It's like,
We recorded you in the
after 5 p.m.
Yeah.
It's like after 5 p.m. this place turns into like 100 heavy metal bands all going at the same time. But it's like, at 9:30 in the morning, Satomi could literally be in the hallway to be dead silent. Yeah. Why did we do that? Because the drums would have been too loud in the acoustic mic.
Yeah.
What a beautiful song. I think I wrote the bridge. And again, it was just rammed into the song. It wasn't written in response to your composition, but it was just something I had in a notebook somewhere that like, oh, this could work. One thing I remember about the wah-wah pedal on that was a thing you could do with these Line 6 these amp simulators was, unlike a real amp, where it'd be like guitar, then it goes through the wah-wah pedal, and then the amp. We could actually put guitar, then through the amp, and then through the wah. So you're actually like wahing the mic. And I remember, Chris, you were the one who made the suggestion, like, this is the way to get even more wah. Like, it would be like the most wah'd wah that anyone's ever heard. And of course, it was like all that Miles Davis music from that period is like an homage to the wah-wah pedal. Like every member of the band is going through at least one wah-wah pedal, like absolutely relentlessly on every song. And so, yeah, the wah was like a big thing. O'Malley, former underdog. Oh, I did write. I wrote even the words on that one. This is one where it wasn't pasted together and they weren't different song idea modules being rammed together, but it was like the whole thing came as one thought. And that almost never happens for me. And I just remember feeling so lucky on O'Malley that, I don't know, just the entire melody from beginning to end just dropped as one gift in my brain. We were on tour in Japan, okay? And we played a NHK session, which is the nationalized, it's like the Japan's BBC, the national radio and TV broadcast. And we did a session and we shared it with Shonen Knife, who we'd been longtime fans. And it was so cool to meet them and to see, my first time seeing them play live was in this radio studio. And the songs were so catchy. Like, you've never heard more melodic, perfectly composed songs in your life, or at least that's how I felt. And I remember waking up the next morning early with all of these melodies running through my head. And I wrote Milkman and O'Malley both in like 20 minutes. Just like in my head on the scrap of paper, having been inspired by Shonen Knife. But Satomi had been telling us while we were in Japan, Japanese baseball games are really fun because the audience, there's no sporting event crowd that's more willing to do things like the wave than a Japanese stadium. Like just everyone participates. And in fact, every player on the Japanese baseball teams had their own personalized song that when they would come up to bat, everybody in the stadium or arena or whatever, the stadium would start singing this in unison. And apparently there was some baseball player called O'Malley, some American guy, like Ichiro became famous as a Japanese player who played on American teams, but there were also Americans who played Unless O'Malley was like some Irish guy. I don't know, but
No, he's American, I think.
he's American. Okay, so it was playing on a Japanese team. And although Satomi didn't actually know his song, she just made one up. And that ended up being the kernel, the O'Malley, O'Malley, O'Malley. So I wrote the song kind of as a, like based around Satomi having sung this like sort of possible melody that could have been his melody or something like that. And I thought it was so adorable that somehow it found its way into this melody that I woke up and had in my head. It was another like self-mythologizing, like we thought of ourselves as like this underdog kind of band, you know, that was never going to be number one, but that actually the desire to be number one was being critiqued in the lyrics. I don't know if this song came first or Scream Team came first, but the lyrics to that, but we ended up having several songs that were like, yeah, about sports or about like, it was like another version of a team. You know, one of the metaphors for our band was like a team, you know, and this kind of like, you know, all for one kind of vibe.
Pirates on an Odyssey, Odyssey. Ask our captain what will be, what will be.
You know, looking back on it, I think that I just thought, this is kind of embarrassing to admit, but I think I just thought like, oh, Deerhoof, everybody sings high in that band. You got it. Like, I felt like I was trying to sing like you, Satomi. I remember immediately after Runners 4, or like after, so I did the Curtains album Calamity right after, and that still was a little bit like that. But I remember like after that being like, oh man, I gotta like get over this
high
singing up high thing. It's not my range. I mean, I think I'm a baritone, really. Like that is totally not my range. So when I hear it back now, I'm just like, oh my God, it's way too high. So I was not trying to sound like Brian Wilson. I could barely do that. And man, I wish we had changed the key of that song.
Sounds great though.
This one, I remember like the lyric was originally not Pirates on an Odyssey. I forget what it was, what the original lyric was.
Really? That wasn't the line?
No, I remember it was Greg, you being like, no, it's got to be about pirates. You're a pirate. You got to see, you know, and it was just like, okay. And I just did it. But I remember afterwards kind of wishing I had it. I wish I could remember what it was before.
So cruel.
But I remember that this was just a thing in the air of like everything kind of having to like come back to this concept. And it felt, at times it felt kind of like a good idea. And at times it felt like a bad idea, you know? But anyway, Odyssey.
Yeah, but the lyrics must not have been completed because the subsequent lyrics in the song are definitely about pirates.
Well, no, that's the thing. I think they were. I think it is about the sea and Odyssey and stuff like that. Right. But I think that's probably why you said the pirate. I think it seemed natural. It probably seemed natural to switch that. But I think it was actually. I think I did have the lyrics.
It was just sailors or something.
Yeah, I forget what it was. I was really into I was reading like Moby Dick and stuff, and I was really into
I
nautical things.
We all were.
Yeah.
But anyway, it started as an acoustic guitar song, and I think we ended up kind of using basically the acoustic guitar demo and just built it out from that.
I think you replayed it, but we were so taken with the demo. We were just like, dude.
Yeah.
This is so perfect and so beautiful and so heartbreaking that like, let's just not screw this up.
Yeah, I remember you playing me, I think it was after rehearsal one day or something, just going up to your apartment.
Exactly, and I remember being so jealous the next morning.
Being like, this is the most beautiful thing
Thanks, guys.
And I think, but you didn't sing lyrics at all, though. It was just, I think you just hummed the melody.
Yeah. I probably didn't have the lyrics until later on. But yeah, I wrote the song about the band and kind of seeing, trying to make, like, thinking of the band as a family and kind of like, trying on this band as a family, as my new family.
My companions focus me, focus me. On the bright real sun. You're my reason. You're my reason to go.
I mean, I remember it as being sort of like a time when we were trying to really make it like everybody's band.
Yeah.
In a way that it maybe didn't necessarily always feel like that before. Like I had actually moved to LA shortly before we started Runners 4, and
Oh, right. Oh,
and there was a time like when Green Cosmos was happening, I was living in LA, and then there was like a time where like, okay, we're going to start a new record. Chris, you need to be up here like every day to do this. And it was kind of like a moment where I was kind of just deciding to like, okay, I'm going to like go all in on Deerhoof because, I had been doing other projects and we all had some other projects that we were doing at the same time too. And I remember this being sort of like, we were deciding to all kind of set aside everything else and kind of like go all in on the band. Does that sound right to everybody?
I had forgotten you were living in LA. How did I forget that whole chapter?
It was like less than a year.
True.
But yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, we demanded you to move back?
Yeah.
What kind of people are we? It's like a pure cruelty.
I think it was just kind of like, this is what we're going to do. And I think you probably would have let me find some way to participate if I hadn't moved, but I knew that it wouldn't have been like what we were talking about. So,
well, certainly not. Yeah.
But yeah,
but dang,
I felt like I was like really going for it. Like, let's see what this band could be for me as far as bringing in my material. And I was really hopeful,
Well, especially with the story about you being requested to move back for the sake of the band is like pretty intense,
Well,
and
yeah.
so the stakes are high.
Yeah, it was very, I mean, I don't know if you all felt this way at the time, but I mean, I felt like it was just a very intense situation. It just seemed like, there was so much on the line, just personally, like in our interpersonal relationships. And I just think I felt so much pressure. I mean, actually, like I remember thinking, like if we don't start making money at this, we're going to have to stop or something.
Yeah.
Did you
That's
all feel,
every record.
Did you all feel that way? I don't know.
Of course.
There was so much
I feel
pressure.
that way every dang time. Yeah, what are you talking about?
I mean, how much more pressure can there be? It's like, this has to be successful. It was so insane. I mean,
None more pressure.
yeah.
Well, I think John and Chris paid more rent than me and Greg. I mean, our place was
really?
so cheap under rent control. So
Really?
yeah, so we weren't worried about the paying rent, but.
Well, that was the first. I remember I was paying $600, and that was the first time I had ever lived alone, and it did feel
Like a lot.
wow. I guess. But I mean, like thinking about it now, I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's a joke.
Dang.
I know.
But yeah, there was a lot of pressure on us, and I think also, maybe, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember thinking sort of like with Kill Rock Stars that it was sort of like, oh, we got to get them to take us seriously, and like
Boy, do
like
I
just kind of
remember
begging
that.
for
Yeah.
attention in a way.
Yeah, I remember it was our first very strained sort of communication with them. The first time that communication with Kill Rock Stars became strained and became stressful, and that feelings started to get hurt, and
Well, I don't think they ever really saw us as a viable commercial band. I mean, I know that they supported us, but I don't think you know, they had bands that were making them money, and that like we were never thought of in that way. And I remembered at the time thinking like, well, maybe we could get them to think about us that way, but it never. I mean, I didn't think that ever happened, really.
Right.
You know.
I mean, hard to say. I mean, the big bands were Sleater Kinney and Elliott Smith, and I mean, I remember so many times making concerted efforts to sound like Sleater Kinney or sound like Elliott Smith.
As if that would work.
And it would just always miss the target by an absolute mile, you know what I mean? But it's like, yeah, you're so right, Chris. I had forgotten about that dynamic.
And I thought our music was going to be, I still think, you know, like that it was timeless. I was like, we're trying to be timeless here.
Yeah.
And like make something really, I wanted to make something like really classic.
That was the pressure. I think.
To like,
I know, but that's a different mindset from I'm trying to make something that's going to sell a lot on the day it comes out.
Right. I was just being naive. I guess I was just thinking, oh, you make something good and you're going to strike it rich.
I mean, that to me is every bit as stressful. I mean, it's like, you know, It's like if you're actually taking it seriously, it's actually because if you're being that critical, and our goal was to be that critical, not only of ourselves, but of each other. And to sort of voice all the stuff that, you know, we weren't trying to be mean to each other, but we were trying to be honest, you know, and like really clear about how we heard stuff. And I don't know, just.
Yeah. I mean, in hindsight, I mean, having played with lots of other bands now and producing, you know, working with other bands, I've never encountered a band that was as hard on each other as we were during those days.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Just
and
a
hard
level
on
of
ourselves.
critique.
I mean,
I
just, you know, it's like we would do the 9 to 5 and then my workday would start. Then it's like
of like mixing,
open up the Pro Tools and start trying to mix it or trying to edit it. And it's like people sometimes, you know, they come up with a merge table or something like that and be like, oh man, you know, like, oh, Runners 4, that's my favorite album of yours. What was it like to, you know, to do that? It just sounds so joyous and stuff. And it's like, I don't want to complain. I mean, everybody has their ups and downs in life. But I mean, I've told many people that like, if I had the option to not do it, if we were faced with like, okay, let's make this record. If I was once again faced with that choice, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I would do it.
Yeah, same.
The psychological toll, you know, and the toll it took on our relationships, which I think have recovered, but like I often feel that I missed my 20s, you know, basically. And a lot of it was spent in front of a computer saying to myself, this isn't good enough. And I would never recommend that process, that type of goal, that type of ambition to anyone. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I don't, well, what can I say? I mean, I think the record came out great and I love it, but it's not a question of that. But
we had our good days too. I mean, not to paint such a totally dark picture, I think like just going song by song, some of these songs I remember like doing Vivid Cheek and O'Malley and Running Thoughts too. I remember a lot of those times were really like, I felt a lot of joy.
Oh yeah.
And
totally.
And just pleasure at seeing, like O'Malley was a song that I was just, you know, I remember it was like just digging our teeth into that was so fun because it had so many, the changes went by fast and there's just a lot of different parts to sink our teeth into. And it was like, I loved just playing that bass line I remember just it was so fun for me. And I really felt like in my mind, I was living out this fantasy of like being a great session player or something, which I know I'm not, but it was like in my mind, I was just like, I felt like we were making something that was great. And it felt, you know, I just felt so lucky to be able to be part of that.
Yeah, you're so right.
There was a lot of good times
too.
Totally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember I had a lot of fun doing the piano overdub on Odyssey. I forget where we were. It was like
Greg, I know where that was.
Practice space?
No, we were in the hallway of Soundwave. Not the hallway, but where you walked in the entrance.
Right.
There was like a little foyer where there was like this shitty old piano. And I
Totally
remember
out of tune.
totally out of tune. And we did it with the laptop, just sat on top of the piano, and you recorded it with the mic and the laptop.
The built-in mic, yeah.
You were like, "Yo, yeah, it sounds great." That's how it was done. It was
But
crazy.
the piano was so out of tune that we had to put like a lot of effect on it later to sort of mask how detuned it was, and it ended up being really cool. It was like this watery sound. But yeah, we were so scared somebody was going to walk in.
Right.
It literally was the foyer of the building.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, there you go. Odyssey.
Yeah.
When you hung a number one, it's the wonder and the fun. Don't be mean to see the green. You get caught in the machine. You caught in the machine.
Wrong time capsule. I remember making up the riff to that. For some reason, I was on the phone with Chess Smith in my apartment. Chess Smith, who now he's like a very well-known jazz and session drummer. Plays in Mr. Bungle. Who's he play with now? Anyway, Chess Smith.
Ceramic Dog. Mark
Of course, Ceramic Dog, Mark
Ribot,
Ribot. Yeah. For some reason, I was on the phone with Chess, and I was sitting in a chair like I am now, and I was holding a guitar in my hands, and I was just sort of absent-mindedly like moving my fingers around. I came up with that riff, and I was so happy with it. I thought it really sounded like some weird like sci-fi Keith Richards or something. And I remember it came together really fast when we recorded it. It might have been one try, and it just like totally clicked.
I always loved your lyrics, Satomi.
Oh, thank you. But this was
Wasn't that yours?
Greg's lyrics.
Oh, really? Oh, I always thought
it might have
Satomi
been
wrote
my
it. Okay.
lyrics.
I always love these lyrics.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
It was sort of a similar thing to the O'Malley. It's like, don't sacrifice basically don't sell your soul to the devil. Don't sacrifice who you are in order to achieve success. But then it was also like this idea of the okay, what was the time capsule? It was, instead of a person in the past leaving a time capsule for people in the future, it was exactly the inverse. It was a girl in the future, probably a post-apocalyptic, somewhat destroyed future that was difficult now to survive, sending a message to the past, what not to do.
Terminator.
If you're in an underground rock band.
Crossbones, don't do what you are about to do, because I'm going to end up basically struggling to survive, So it's wrong time capsule. It was like, don't do this.
It's about capitalism. Right?
It's about capitalism. You got it.
America.
Skip the waves, syncopate forwards, backwards. Ooh. Skip the waves, syncopate forwards, backwards. Ooh. Skip the waves, syncopate forwards, backwards.
I mean, I thought it was really taboo. Like, I mean, that's what I loved about Deerhoof when I first discovered them. I was like, finally, a rock band that sounds like real rock to me. The rock music that I grew up listening to. And it just seemed so like no one else is doing that. Like no one else is admitting that they like this or coming from this place. So it made me feel super connected to the band. And then I guess it's probably just our age or something too, right?
I mean, I love that you say that. I feel like it was more complicated. I think that most of the allusions, at least prior to you joining, to the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Who, the Kinks,
and the Trogs
were coming from me.
Not John.
And
Not me, yeah.
I don't think that I realized how unhip it was. It's just, that's like music that I actually liked. And it was music that I thought it had proven itself as standing the test of time. And so I thought like, oh, well, if you want to make like an album that's going to do well, like obviously model it on something that has previously done well. And so, but a song like Wrong Time is like, you know, I'm not playing the guitar on that song. It's John playing the riff. And like, that was not a common ground that we had or have at all.
Not at all. Yeah. We do now. It's like, I feel like, but at that time for sure, like when I first joined Deerhoof, I had none of that. I didn't know. I mean, I didn't listen to the Beatles. I didn't listen to the Rolling Stones, but I started listening to the Kinks through you all. And
but you liked metal and stuff, right?
I loved
Didn't
metal.
you like Judas Priest?
I mean, at that moment, actually, I was kind of already over metal, but like, I would have considered myself a fan of classic rock, you know? I mean, I liked Zeppelin. But it was, it's just, I had horrible taste. Like, it's funny because I think I still do. Like I remember going into a recording studio with Ed's in my old band, and the engineer saying, "Oh, so do you know the Who?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know that song Eminence Front." And
that's a good song. That's a good song.
He's like, "You don't
John,
know
you have
the
good
Who."
taste.
That's an awesome song. Yeah, that keyboard part.
No, I love it. But I mean, but my point is, like, I just didn't know this music. I wasn't exposed to it.
Yeah.
Like when people were listening to that, I was like listening to very different things. So
I remember Satomi, you and Greg were really into free
Yeah.
stuff.
yeah.
Me?
When we were doing
I
this
don't
record.
think so.
No?
Free.
Oh.
Well, there's just that song all
What was
right
it?
now.
Yeah.
Right.
I never thought that was funny when I was in Japan. I think I thought I joined the noise band and then turned into rock band.
Oops.
Oop.
Thumbs
But,
down.
so tell me, what about Ozzy? You're a big Ozzy
No, I
fan.
liked metal. Yeah, Ozzy.
Yeah, you were in the
I
metal.
saw Ozzy.
I mean, that's
in
classic
Budokan.
rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
With Zakk Wylde, the Zakk Wylde era.
Zakk Wylde.
Yeah.
Then after me, you guys got Ed, who's basically like Zakk Wylde's come back,
Yeah.
He's the
he
21st
could play
century
all that
Zakk Wylde.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
I came to San Francisco and stayed with a friend who I became friend with in Tokyo and in this band called the Carolina Rainbow, and he let me stay, and he was like kind of a, how do you call it, like a guardian, like a mentor, and then he was like, do you want to join this band called Deerhoof? They're looking for a singer. And he played the 7-inch, and that came out from Kill Rock Stars or something. And it was a noise band. Just a crackling noise, and sometimes screaming. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. I love noise. I like Merzbow, CCCC, and like, Masona and all that kind of Haino Keiji. And, I came from that kind of 80s, like Japanese, noise people. And I thought I joined the noise band. So I didn't expect I sing like melodies and stuff, because I didn't know how to sing, how to play any instruments. But, I learned over time.
That's a John tune originally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had made a really insane sounding demo to a dance hall beat, like drum machine beat that I don't remember where I even gathered that, but I had some CD or something of beats of like electronic beats, and I recorded the demo to that. It really is crazy sounding. I have it somewhere. It's like all DI guitars, and like really compressed DI guitars. They actually sound really cool.
But it was all out of order. It was like, we heard it and you had this like, at the very end, there was this like little coda where it faded out or something that lasted like 3 seconds. And we were all like, John, that's obviously the main part. That's the best part of the whole demo, you know? So we turned that into the main, you know, dun, 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 dun. It was that part was, was just the weird, like,
yeah, you're right. It was an outro
fade thing.
I think it was better like that, actually.
What? God, man, you and Chris both now saying like it shouldn't have been Pirates on an Odyssey. That's it. We got to go back and redo the whole dang record. I can't believe this. This is shocking.
The song took about a week. We spent like a week on it.
Yeah,
it was really
it was hard.
It was really hard to arrange.
The drum beat was super hard.
And then I thought the demo sounded so pop, you know, like because of the electronic sounds and like really like chunky and, you know, fun, you know, and then we played and then it was not fun anymore. So I'm like how can we make it so close to the demo, you know?
Right.
And so that was my whole goal, and I wasn't happy for a long time. And I remember we like, you know, tried so many things.
Well, I just couldn't get the beat. I mean, I couldn't nail it.
Yeah.
I was just too sloppy, you know. I could not get that electronic precision, you know. You ended up playing a kind of a sampler.
Yeah.
On a lot of it. You played both guitar and sampler on that song, kind of went back and forth. I'm sure the version on the record was pieced together from zillions of takes, you know, and like different arrangements, you know, like I don't think it's actually that you went back and forth between guitar and sampler. I think it was that one day we were trying it with you on guitar and then we canned it and said, forget it, it's not working. Try it with the sampler. And then we ended up like splicing together moments from each. But yeah, it was just really hard to agree on the rhythmic feel. I think we all were trying really hard, but
yeah.
There was a while when it was like kind of seeming like bossa nova at one point.
Yeah, exactly.
And
right.
Yeah, and it was like it went through some bad periods and then it got good.
Yeah.
It got at the end.
Yeah.
It's a funny song, I think. It's fun.
Yeah. I remember we were on tour at some venue, some small venue, maybe in Chicago, that had a cafe in the front. And the cafe had like a little library that had like some books on the shelf, you know, not very many. And one was like some kind of like poetry anthology that I opened to a random page. And it was Ode on a Grecian Urn, the Yeats poem. And I was just like, what? These lines are incredible. You know,
that's
it's like
where the title came
this
from?
period of English poetry that where everything was like as arcane as possible. And it was really hard to figure out what in the world they were talking about. But like my favorite album then and now probably is a weird record of music of ancient Greece, where people had tried to recreate from just these few remaining fragments of notation that existed from that empire millennia ago, tried to recreate what the music might have sounded like and like rebuilt the instruments and stuff. And it was totally a hopeless task. And so it's this idea of, it is sort of like a time capsule, but this one's not a reverse time capsule. It's like exactly what Yeats is talking about in the poem. It's that this being is like sort of forever frozen on the side of this urn painted on, and it's a musician. And like, what in the world does the music actually sound like? None of us knows, you know, and it's like from so many centuries ago. And like, you have to use your imagination to even guess what the music might have sounded like. And that's what Yeats was doing in the poem. And then I sort of hit on that phrase, and then Satomi wrote all the lyrics based on the sort of concept of that. It was sort of like a rewrite of Ode on a Grecian Urn.
Yeah.
And then that's why it goes into that long period of near silence at the end.
I mean, I don't think we were trying to be tricky. I think it was just
No.
like, I mean, I'm actually so like remedial that I'm not even like a 4/4 person. It's like, it's just like, that was the way that it came out. And I couldn't have even, I learned how to count music like recently. You know, back then I couldn't even really count, just living in the moment.
Me neither. I'm like, I played, I still like in Deerhoof, I play songs and I ask Greg, what's this rhythm? Is it 5? And then Greg doesn't answer me. I mean,
Why not?
yeah, because you can play, so
'Cause
you
I
don't
don't
need
know
to
either.
count. So I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna count.
I think what it is oftentimes, Satomi, like the way you count, like to me, it'll feel like you're counting, like you have your own sort of language of counting. It isn't consistent from one song
Yeah.
to the next. Like, so each song would have like a way of counting
Yeah.
that is logical, which totally makes sense, but it's like, it's difficult to communicate.
Well,
Because I could give you my number.
Yeah, yeah, no,
exactly.
I
They're
totally-
not going to mean
the way,
anything to
the
you.
way Satomi would count Scream Team would be 1, 2, 3.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly how I remember like songs,
Yeah.
like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, totally.
Finding you, a voice is coming from behind the stage. Finding you, a voice is found on a missing page. Winding through, I don't control from the night.
This was something that I think during this whole session, all of these sessions, that came up a lot was like everybody having their different systems of learning things. And like something that I still, I think I took away from this, and I really think it's important is just like letting people do it their own way and not trying to,
Exactly.
like, that's something I learned from Deerhoof. And I think specifically at this time, it was just like, it's going to be danger if we try to like, the language about it is not important. It's about internalizing it and just sort of knowing it, knowing it in your body, but just like, we don't talk about it, because if we talk about it, everything's going to fall apart.
Right.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
that was very useful.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's good advice, I think. I mean, that plays into just living in the world and having relationships with people in the world. And like, you may not be able to understand the world in the same way that the person you're talking to is, but you don't have to inflict your way of thinking necessarily on somebody, but you can still have a conversation and learn from each other. And
Words don't capture everything.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
And even if they did, we don't necessarily speak the same language, and yet play together and something happens in which the 4 parts are interdependent, and really kind of 5 parts if you count the vocals, but something is happening simultaneously in which we each are living in our own bubble. I'm saying in the songs, like in the songs on Runners 4, it's like everybody's playing kind of soloistically and trying to make it so that if it was just their part isolated, which we did actually after the record came out, like there was a remix page that we had. So it was each stem, it was before stems became a popular thing, but it was like, we wanted it to be that you could listen to each person's part isolated and it would still sound like an interesting finished music composition. It wasn't just there to like accompany or back up somebody else. It was like it's definitely its own life force, its own entity. And it was not exactly what you said, John. It wasn't forced to square with someone else's.
Enter sideways, reaching all around. In the darkness, I will not be found. Invisible people doing the way. Invisible people doing the way.
Chris's song?
It's kind of embarrassing to say, but I think I was trying to write a song, like I was like trying to write a song that I thought Deerhoof would like. It was like kind of my idea of a Deerhoof song.
Yeah, it was fun. It was so
Mission
different.
accomplished.
Yeah, so different from what we've done ever.
That's
And
cool.
still,
How come?
I don't know, because it's kind of like for me, like it kind of rockabilly or something.
Well, you were doing that kind of Chuck Berry thing on the
Yeah.
on your guitar part.
Yeah, it was. Chris thought it was easy for me to play that part, but I struggled so much. But
It's a lot of downstrokes.
Yeah, and I mean, people really danced when we played at the, live, and it's really dance tune.
We get that one requested a lot. We
Yeah.
really should relearn
Huh.
it.
I forget, John, did you sing some of that?
Yeah.
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 Or did you sing all of it? Yeah.
No. Don't we all sang, right?
No, we all took turns.
Yeah.
Everybody
Okay.
had a turn.
Yeah.
You
Okay,
did the
yeah.
part da, 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 da,
Okay.
da, da.
Right.
Wasn't that
Yeah.
you, John?
I-
No, maybe that was
No, I
I
wasn't.
can't
Chris.
remember
I
that.
can't remember.
Yeah.
No, that
No,
was
it was
me.
John. Oh, that was you. Yeah, that's
Well, then
you.
what part did you sing? Da, da, da,
It
da,
might have been
da,
me.
da, 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 da. That was all of us in harmony.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, no, but the da-da-da-da.
Oh, da, 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 da. That was you, Chris.
yeah.
Then da, 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 was me. And then Satomi and John both sang something.
Yeah. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Ba, 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 ba. John, you
Oh,
sang
yeah.
ba, da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. That was sort of like revenge on your unsingable melodies.
Right.
Then like,
Yeah.
Chris gave you that.
Yeah, that was
attempt.
hard to sing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not one of my prouder moments.
Yeah.
Your legs don't work and you're caught in the line. You can't see through the wall, so nothing is right. There's a man in the cellar next door, and he's scratching the floor 50 miles away. You didn't know him till today.
That one felt very fused between you and me writing it together.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling so proud of it. This is You Can See. I struggled with it for months in the computer. I couldn't figure out the form. Like, we didn't know whether to start with da, 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 or whether to start ba, ba,
Yeah.
and finally it started to make sense. And then we had the idea of, I think I sing first and then you sing second. That was another one where John played the Casio, that weird keyboard guitar thing. That sounded so cool.
I love that song.
But the words were so interesting. I mean, it was like almost a short story, like about this. It was very sci-fi, like it was completely invented plot from scratch. It was not it wasn't like a normal topic for a song. It wasn't just like another love song or something. It was very specific, like this very precisely drawn character in lots of detail who discovered that he had this strange visual ability that no one else had. And it was like a blessing and a curse, and he didn't know what to do with it. It was sort of like the Cassandra complex,
I just looked up the lyrics. Like, I can't even remember it at all. It's amazing.
Really?
Oh my God.
They're
It's just
all
like another
yours.
person wrote it.
Yeah, man, it was genius. No, man, you nailed it.
Walking home and your heart has been drained, but your eyes have been newly trained, and the roof is invisible now. It's incredible how you were ever blind. Now you will always find rooms all connected, eyes all perfected. Hey now, you can see something you shouldn't be, something suddenly free.
Oh, and that was the first time Deerhoof ever had three-part vocal harmony on any of our songs. And I remember that moment near the end of the song where you, me, and Satomi were in three-part harmony, that would make my mom's arm hairs stand up on me. That was her favorite moment of all Deerhoof music was when we hit that 3-part harmony. There's only like 2 notes or something, but it just like sounded so lush by comparison to our like, like scrawny, like super raw, like skeletal and abrasive music or whatever.
It wasn't like doing it in a real studio like would have occurred to us. I mean, we never got a budget ever. It wasn't like we were like, oh, maybe we should go to. I mean, it was just this was the only way that even presented itself, I think, as far as like recording over multiple days.
Right. If we went into a studio, it's usually like a day or two,
Right.
and it would just be like blast through everything and then take it home and mix it.
Somebody got a free day, basically.
Right.
Yeah, and those would be songs that we had played on tour night after night and could just go into a studio and track. But then this was like we were going to create new music from scratch together.
Yeah.
So there was like no other way to do
Right.
it, I don't think, unless we had like $1 bazillion dollars.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the there's a riot going on model. I think that was another thing we were talking about constantly.
Yeah.
Like, home studio, basically, and just record in the house and look how different the music turns out. Thank you for letting me be myself. Like the difference of the 2 versions when it's like, we're in a studio for 2 days and we got to make this pop record. And then it's like, we're in the quote unquote studio, which is my living room for like 2 years, like totally fried and like everything so personal. And it's all about the personal interactions and weird, the type of musical brainstorms that come up at 4 a.m, when you're not on the clock. And nobody's watching and you're kind of in secret. We wanted to get that vibration,
We were probably only like a mile away from that studio.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I don't think I realized at the time. I don't remember like having that thought.
Yeah, that's so ironic. Totally. It was like a local Oakland, legend. What was the story we eventually heard that somebody had bought Sly Stone's eventually bought that console, the board that he had in his house years later. Of course, it needed servicing. It was in very bad condition. And when they opened it up, the layer of cocaine dust that was sitting on the bottom shelf of this console was like I don't know. We didn't do that. You guys probably had coffee. I maybe had tea.
I had a lot of coffee.
I ride the bike at 9 o'clock. I heard the footstepping sounds come after me. Turning the corner, I see no one, silence.
That was my lyrics, but was it collaborative thing?
That song was sort of 2 totally different things smashed together. The first one was that was a bass line of Chris's, I think, when we're talking about Midnight Bicycle Mystery.
Oh, right.
Where I think you made up something to sound like that 70s Miles stuff. And then we would kind of like jam on it for a while. And then we were like begging John to play like John McLaughlin and play some like really dissonant chords and weird leads. And then Satomi was playing the sampler.
Yeah,
in
the
that
spacey
section.
stuff.
And then we just, exactly. So then it was another thing where we just recorded like 2 hours of this jam and then whittled it down to about 30 seconds, for the intro of that song. I seem to remember that it was an example of a thing that often happened in Deerhoof. And it had to do with using the free version of Pro Tools that I was using. That we'd record it, I'd make a rough mix and something would happen and I'd erase or lose or think I no longer needed the original session. And then we're just stuck with this rough mix that doesn't sound very good. And like, then just struggle for months, like trying to, like it would have been so much faster to just go back and re-record it. But it's like, no. This was this moment, this magic moment that's never going to happen again. And I got to find some way to preserve it. And, this sort of like compromised recording, I have to find some way to restore it, to sounding good. Yeah. And then you wrote a story about, what was it, like a stolen bicycle or something?
It was, like my mom's ghost story. Yeah. So she thought somebody was coming after her. And then bicycle, midnight, and then she turned around and there's, turned the corner and then turned around and there was no one, So that's the story.
Hence the mystery.
Yeah. Based on true story.
Hello, lover, I can't do you harm. Little lover, I did do you harm. Whenever I want to. Oh no, the lyrical lapsing.
That was recorded at my place,
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris's.
Entirely.
and we all played guitars.
In the hurdy-gurdy.
Yeah, you had a
yeah.
harmonium. I don't
Oh, no,
remember why you
harmonium.
had it.
Yes,
What's
sir.
it?
Yeah.
Harmonium.
But that part we did at our house.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
You overdubbed it. And I remember how much you wanted to play the harmonium on something.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually turned out really nice. I felt like you were sort of just hitting random notes, but it ended up being kind of like it just fit so beautifully with the chords.
I love the sound of that song. Just like that combination of the acoustic guitars with the harmonium.
It was totally cool.
Great sound.
And then the drums were just like some frying pan or something that Chris had in his kitchen. Yeah, you can hear it. Yeah, you can hear it very clearly. It's like a mixing bowl or a frying pan or something. After Me, the Deluge was another line that came out of that book in Chicago in that cafe. It was a very fruitful visit to that cafe. It was some line that, was it like Louis the 14th or something had said, it was some like historical thing from the French monarchy times or whatever. And he was maybe talking about revolution. But, we were very concerned. I mean, the other big recurring motif in the record is the Noah's Ark and the flood, all of which has to do with time capsules and saving the past for the future, and has to do with, pairs of things, and obviously floods, calamities before and after, and also fools, the Noah being the mocked village idiot who, has the Cassandra complex and is cursed to be able to see the future, and nobody believes him. He builds this thing that seems completely and utterly pointless. I mean, that's exactly like what we felt we were doing. We were village idiots, like wasting our time in a windowless practice space, like all day, every day for months, and just like trying to build this ridiculous thing that we thought served a purpose. But, we felt a little bit like we didn't feel like we had enemies at all. The Bay Area right then was an incredibly supportive music scene. And I think we always felt quite well loved. But I think we did have a desire to prove something, like Chris was saying, if to the label, then nothing else. Or maybe prove to ourselves that we could do something that we didn't think we could do before.
Tomorrow crashes down. A dark every night so long, and it's so
think it's kind of like a romantic song, a sort of song about a romantic relationship that sort of has similarly a sort of before and after quality to it, and things seem really easy and innocent at first, and then things become harder once it becomes possible to experience pain in the relationship for the first time and to realize you're capable of hurting each other. It's sort of like something clicks there that you can never go back to the time period before you ever hurt each other's feelings, I think that me and Satomi's relationship suffered as a result, regardless of whether we fought. It was the question of the band took precedence, It's a difficult thought to go back and sort of process.
I don't actually remember having so much fight with Greg though.
Good.
During this. We were too busy to even fight. I mean, we had to eat and we had to, sleep and that took time.
I mean, also it wasn't just recording as well. It was we'd go on tour then on these intense, long tours. I remember because it would often be, we'd finish with the tour and I had the car, or it was a rental or something. And I remember dropping off Greg and Satomi in San Francisco. And it's we all just spent the last month completely together 100% of the time. And then they're going up into their studio apartment. And I'm just oh my God, it's just but we we did pretty well, it's
I think so too.
But it's it's a lot. And yeah.
Kind of to what you were saying, Greg, I think that our relationships got to the point where we were inflicting, we were inflicting pain on each other, but also getting closer.
Right.
As relationships do become more risky, the more you give.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily agree with the saying that we were easygoing, or at least for myself, I don't think I was easygoing. And maybe to just respond to the thing about whether or not was it a success or something. I mean, to me, it was not a success in a personal way because I left the band afterwards.
Right.
It was a success in the bigger scheme of things in terms of me finding out for myself, what my role might be in this group.
Right.
And sort of you're saying when you were talking about After Me, the Deluge, it's sort of there was no going back to the time before that where we were a little bit more carefree with each other, or a little bit, I think we were a little bit gentler with each other before this record. And then afterwards, it was kind of there was no way to go back to that, having taken it to the point that we did. So for me, I don't think I was easygoing. I felt very, very raw and very, there was I have a lot of painful memories of it as well, but and like you said, it's not something it's not something I would choose to repeat, but I don't have any regrets about it, of course. And I'm glad that we did it. And the nice thing about recordings is that you get to walk away from it with this thing that you can keep forever, that you can just kind of, you can pick apart as long as you want.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have, really.
You can reissue on double LP again and again. You do podcasts.
Exactly.
Analyzing. Yeah. No, it's incredible. It's incredible. Just to have this conversation. We never did a debriefing. We just went on tour.
Oh, yeah. That reminds me, something I wanted to mention.
Okay.
I believe it was the same year the Metallica documentary came out.
Totally.
And I feel like we were all talking about some kind of monster during the making of this record.
Wow.
Totally.
Just to throw that in there, I feel like that was in the zeitgeist.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Still my favorite movie.
I almost cried watching that movie. It was so triggering and
Oh, God. Yeah.
and real.
Right.
We all kind of lived through something kind of like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think doing this record.
Yeah.
And there's so many bands do.
And every band does. That's why it's
so
such a great
common,
movie.
yeah.
It's just it's a myth. It's what every band experiences.
Right.
Yeah. Minus the therapist, we didn't have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't have the
And
rehab.
maybe if we did,
Right.
maybe things would have been different.
Yeah. serious star. I was kind of improvising on guitar, you know.
I mean, for me, the star of the show is like all the noise that Satomi played on her guitar parts. These crazy like delay, you know, noise stuff.
Yeah, and I think you did that live, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
were
I did
reacting
that,
to
yeah.
it. That was
Yeah.
not an overdub. So that's why
Yeah.
the song is like so
Yeah.
like unstable sounding. A person who was just starting his music career in the Bay Area at the time was Devendra Banhart. He sounded at the time a lot like Tyrannosaurus Rex, you know, the early Mark Bolan stuff. He'd sing in this really high falsetto and strum these chords really quietly, and you couldn't really hear what lyrics he was saying. And it was like the shyest persona. I don't even remember seeing him on a stage. He'd like play at like a bookstore or something, like Adobe Books or something. And I remember us all being really charmed by his music. And I think I was trying to write a song that sounded like Devendra. So I was like trying to like make this sort of like high melody with these like really simple chords, you know, on the guitar. It kind of turned into a lot more. New sections kept getting tacked on. That one section ended up being really heavy and did kind of sound like Zeppelin. And then there was like a quiet part, was like something I wrote on an airplane, I think. And then was completely John's. And then a separate song of John's was. Those were two totally separate ideas of his. And then was something that I wrote after watching a movie about like, it was like set in Renaissance times or something. And so I was like, it was supposed to sound like Renaissance music. And somehow it sort of went together.
It sets you free. Count the stars, be blind to see. Whisper, I will seek out a luminous tonight. Sight of fading.
Lemon and Little Lemon. I never wanted to ask what the lyrics were about because it was like so clearly a kind of pair of people who were sour, either with each other or with others. And, you know, that had a large size differential. and I kind of always wondered if that was a portrait of me and Satomi.
No, I don't think so. I mean, there was actually a lemon that I remember that I found this lemon that had a little baby lemon growing inside of it. And that was really where the song came from. But I guess I just sort of spun it out into some sort of story about some sort of dysfunctional relationship. I mean, looking back on it, I'm sure there were probably pieces of, you know, my own experience, and probably, I'm sure everybody I knew or every relationship I observed had, you know, would go into something like that.
Yeah, of
but
course.
I don't think it was about anyone specifically.
Right.
But yeah, there was a real lemon.
For my wins a trophy and hands it to you. The little lemon hides its rind. Sour person's double mind, who won't let go of you.
It's like one of those where your heart melts when you hear it. And it was just like, that was the one, actually, Chris, not Odyssey. This was the one where anything we could do to retain the keyboard that you had recorded on this demo. It was like, we are not redoing this keyboard. It is too good. The sound is perfect. The tempo is perfect. The feel on it, wherever the mic was in relation to the speaker, it was too perfect. It was like a time capsule. We kept the demo keyboard, but then recorded the whole song like half a beat later over it. It was so weird. We had such a hard time with it. That one I just remember like going absolutely ape, like trying to get the timing right. And, that was just a Pro Tools nightmare. It sounds really natural in the finished song. It sounds like nothing. We just tossed it off or whatever, but it was like so much like microsurgery or whatever, trying to get this thing right.
I had a hard time singing that song, recording.
Yeah, it was hard. It was a terrible.
Yeah.
It was not well written in terms of the range. Like it was not like we didn't arrange it well. I feel like for you.
No, I think it was great. It's just I couldn't hit the like really low note. I think
that's what I mean.
Handed to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It just the range was like too big. I don't know. It was not something I could have sung well either.
Stuck to the blue skinny man, smash through the sky and wait for a new day. Thoughts in the touch, tiny touch, energy surging, cosmic vitality. Lightning bolt, step back to the ground. Lightning bolt, he sees cracks in the clouds.
That's John.
It's completely John's, and he wrote the lyrics. And it's funny that John's not here now.
I don't think he likes it now.
Really?
He-
Why?
Really?
I think he told me. He's thought that. Yeah, he doesn't like what he wrote. I mean, not the music, the lyrics.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah.
Those lyrics were, what can I say? A lot of these lyrics really cut to the bone. And it's one thing to feel that a song is about a real person. It's another thing when it's like, wow, a song is about a real person, and I might be at least among the real people that are being mentioned or implicated in this thing. But like, I think that John saw himself as a lightning rod within the band, and that I think what he was expressing was a desire to escape, where there was a lot of electric and possibly harmful energy, flashing around amongst the four of us, and that he was, of the four of us, perhaps the most calm or the most peaceful or the least likely to be in an actual argument. And he sort of had a habit of staying quiet and not being as confrontational when a conflict would occur. And it didn't have to be like some horrible serious conflict. It could just be like a disagreement, like I want A flat and you want B flat or whatever. But like he would sometimes felt like he had to make peace by just sort of acquiescing to other people's wishes. And I think that the song was maybe a fantasy of escaping that. That was more his way, that he suffered in silence, and that these lyrics were sort of an expression of the repercussions of like holding stuff inside, basically,
But to be fair, John is not here, so
So that could be completely wrong.
yeah.
Yeah. So we don't know.
We should give John a chance to rebut.
Yeah.
Are you a dry kind of one? Do tell me. Show me your tongue and I'll make you healthy. Peppercorn, peppercorn. Peppercorn, peppercorn.
Oh, is that peppercorn? Peppercorn.
Yeah, peppercorn.
Peppercorn.
I think that was John. I feel like he did a lot of it by himself at home.
Yep.
No?
He definitely did the keyboard part.
That was like a
himself.
demo.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
is sort of like Lemon and Little
Yeah.
Lemon. It had this, keyboard part that was very constant that we kept and built the whole song around that. I mean, there were no drums, so it wasn't as difficult as Lemon. So this one was more like a John solo project.
I think this was another it has to conform to the concept.
Right.
I remember Bone Dry somehow being imposed on it very late in the game. I mean, just now, I thought the song was called Peppercorn.
Right. Yeah.
It was known as Peppercorn. So, and I think it's like, that was a very John thing to write a song about. Like, he's just going to write it about like the spice.
No, but it wasn't about spice. It was about Chinese medicine. It was Chinese herbal medicine.
Right. But it didn't, I think because it didn't connect to the themes that we had set out for this album.
Yeah.
That I think it's somehow that I remember Bone Dry somehow becoming, I don't even know how that connects to the concept of
just
Runners
dry,
4, but
because if the whole album's about a flood, then
dry, right, okay, so yeah, I remember that kind of came about late, right?
Yeah, I mean, looking back, I mean, the song definitely fits in just fine. I mean, it's like the whole idea of the tradition of Chinese medicine and it's surviving the millennia, you know, and being a way that kept millions and millions of people healthy over thousands of generations, or at least hundreds of generations. You know, we're living in the Bay Area. It's kind of like land of the New Age, you know, there in California. And you know, I think he lived near a Whole Foods or something. And it's like, you know, this stuff was like constantly, you know, in conversation in people's minds and trying to adopt bits and pieces of, you know, non-Western mental and physical health systems. And yeah, I don't know. To me, it fits even without the title change.
Oh yeah, no, there's no question. I mean, to me, it fits too. I just think it's funny that we're still, after all these years, like we're still trying to like write the one sheet for this album and try to fit it all. Of course, it fits. I mean,
complex.
it was John's song. I mean, it came from the heart, and it's like it was a part of this time, and it's, you know, there was no way that it didn't fit.
Right.
But it's funny that we had to do so much work to try to sort of make all this stuff into like a concept. And I think that speaks to something in our mindset making this record, was like that it has to be cohesive or whatever. We didn't believe it. We didn't believe that it actually could really be cohesive in real life. We had to sort of make it by brute force come together in a one sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that analysis is absolutely accurate.
It was just free improvisation, right?
Totally free improvisation that was undoubtedly from the same day as the end of Spirit Ditties, and just a different part of the improv. And it's the result of us improvising, although it's not purist. It's not exactly as played. And particularly because of the fact that the guitars were direct into the computer through these amp simulators, there was zero guitar bleed. Zero. So that was a Pandora's box of endless possibilities of scooting stuff around and like, oh, this guitar lick is really cool, but it would sound better pasted over there. And so that was one of the things that was very time consuming on this was that although we played it live for the most part, and it sounds played live in the end result, in between those two things, there was endless amounts of tinkering and fixing of stuff. Not really fixing. I mean, that's the one thing we didn't do. We didn't fix any mistakes. It's almost like we exaggerated them. It's like we just felt this obsessive need to try every possible combination of everything. And, you know, one chord that John played in one song that sounded cool would end up getting pasted into a completely different song, but it was just like such a magical moment, but we need a sound like that on this other one. And because we'd been working on the songs for so many months, we were very, very familiar with every section of every song. Like, it wasn't new to us anymore by the end. We we had an intuition about the big picture, that you don't always get when you're working really fast. But it's like it's like when you become really, really familiar with, like the contours of your own face, maybe you're shaving or like putting on makeup or something. Like you know your face so well. That's sort of how the album felt by the end. It's like, oh, I remember there was that one noise, that one cymbal hit that I did on that outtake, and that would be perfect right here in this song. I know just where to put it, because you know the landscape so well.
Spy on you, spy on you, follow you, follow you. Spy on you, spy on you, after you, after you. Under investigation, I have your information.
I don't know, just to me, like the music sounded like what I was thinking about. I always make lyrics after music is done, so the music inspires me, I play the tremolo.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I'm like, oh, this is a spy music.
No, but you
And
wrote
you had the
the song
words, I
at
think,
home
too, right?
without the tremolo, didn't you? Spy on
I
You?
know, but then, yeah, that's true. So the tremolo came after.
Words and melody were simultaneous.
The music you guys write, or when
No, it was all you.
those
Satomi.
songs, Spy
Right,
on You.
I
Yeah,
see.
I wrote the whole thing. I liked this Spy on You lyrics. Yeah.
Hidden gamble, double meeting. We are the remaining. Guess the floor long. I see water. Can I really live? Apparitions are reminders. What will never come back? We imagine new horizon, love infinity.
One of our biggest arguments in the band, and we talked today a lot about interband conflicts. Our biggest conflict was over whether Eyes Wide Shut was a good movie, and just Kubrick's output in general. And Chris was always tirelessly trying to sell me on some other auteur, and he was trying to get me off the Kubrick stuff. Look at this. I mean, here, look. It still has not ended. I just read. I'm in the middle of this book, and then I just got the Kubrick biography for the first time. It's still like an obsession with me. And Chris was really doing the hard sell. Greg, you got to get into like Hitchcock, or you got to get in somebody. And I wasn't buying it. But for a time, we were trying to. What's that guy's name? It was Klaus Kinski and Werner Herzog. You were trying to get me into Werner Herzog, and we watched Aguirre. Satomi and I watched Aguirre at home, and the soundtrack, it was Popol Vuh, right?
Yeah.
So it's the soundtrack on those Herzog movies in that era, and kind of a weird, kind of like real 70s, like not Tangerine Dream, but something kind of like that, but really dark sounding. Such a dark movie, this Aguirre, and kind of something evil lurking. It's like Tangerine Dream, but quite evil sounding. And I remember just feeling like I liked John's riff, but it wasn't, something about it wasn't quite emotionally grabbing me enough. And something about the Aguirre soundtrack, it had that weird like ba, ba, this major minor back, just the same chord but done major and then done minor alternating, that I seem to recall. I haven't heard it since we watched the movie back then, but I seem to recall like that was a big thing, like in one of these like late night kind of delirious states. John's riff and the Aguirre soundtrack kind of merged in my mind, and I came to practice one day with some like, it's got to have like more reverb and sound kind of like more like haunting, or or it was just like a kind of really plain rock riff when John wrote it. And then it ended up sounding like, I mean, I love the song now. It's like, it became a very haunting thing about, basically about the apocalypse, you know, about the flood. It was all about, he wrote all the lyrics, but by this point in the process of making the record, a lot of the songs were done and we knew the flood theme was there. And so he wrote lyrics completely around that kind of myth.
I'm just remembering some other riffs. There were some other like, I think I bring in da 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 da.
Maybe.
I think I wrote that on piano, if I remember correctly.
I don't even remember this part of the song.
It was like a riff. Dun, 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 dun. Is this the right song? Dun, 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 dun.
No, that's not the right song.
Yeah.
No, that's right. You're singing right. You're singing right.
Oh, that's right.
That's what we are talking about.
Yeah. No, we're talking about Your Are To.
It's funny. In my mind, those two songs are like the same song. I apologize.
I thought we were talking about right too.
Oh, man.
Carry on.
Yeah, right. That's a play on Mount Ararat, which is in present day Turkey or Syria or something like that. Ararat was, historically.
I think it's in Armenia.
It's in Armenia. You're right.
Yeah.
It was theoretically, historically, the one peak that was above the flood water of historical flood that people think the the biblical myth was based on or whatever. So it's Ararat. But yeah, I feel like I didn't have much to do with this one. I felt like Chris, you and John made up. No, it was kind of the three of you. I was gone or something, and you guys came up with this incredible.
Yeah, it started on piano.
Really?
Yeah, I remember I wrote it on Don Garcia's grandma's piano.
Oh, wow.
And then it just was like that bass riff. I was thinking of the Stooges. I was trying to do like a Stooges kind of bass line.
Mm-hmm.
And Satomi's got her big guitar solo in that one too. We all stop and she does this big noise thing.
Yeah.
That was so cool. And that was one where, where we changed tempos in the middle of the song a lot. That was another like sort of time travel vibe. It was like, oh, you can slow time down and speed it up. We were like trying to play with it that way and not be locked into this machine. Bend the machine. That was like something we were trying to do all the time. Bend the machine. It's like, instead of everything being on a grid, we were not recording to a grid or a click track. Everything was like very, human, animal sounds. We probably turned it in 2 or 3 times. I mean, that's what we typically did. We'd like realize, like, wait, throw that one away. We gotta mix something again. But I didn't hear it for a long time. And then our booking agent lives in Houston, Texas, Eric Carter. We were on tour and we were staying at Eric's house in Houston. And he's a big record collector. And he had just bought the new Queens of the Stone Age. And we had just received a test pressing of the Runners 4. This is how I remember it anyway. And I was so excited because we had mixed the record, being it with Queens of the Stone Age, with that actual record, that whatever that song is. This was back in the day of the volume wars. Everybody was trying to make their record loud. And that Queens of the Stone Age hit song was so loud.
Oh, yeah.
The mastering was so loud. And it just like, I spent so much time trying to make the Runners 4 sound as loud as that song. digitally. And then lo and behold, we get to Eric's house, and what does he have? He just bought the new Queens of the... It wasn't that new at the point, but he had just bought that Queens of the Stone Age record. He puts it on. It's like, wow, Eric, you've got an incredible stereo. This sounds thick, huge. This is like totally banging. Then he put on the Runners 4 and we were all like, huh? It was like, it sounded so scrawny and tiny and quiet. And like all the instruments sounded like they were being played with pencils or like, toy guitars or something. I was just like, what did we do? I just had like the most demoralizing experience. And then, of course, now, for me, that's its charm, is that we thought we were making a huge rock record, and it just sounds so not that. It sounds so idiosyncratic and just mixed in the weirdest way, and just like nothing about it makes sense. It was people who spent too much time working on it and had lost all perspective, and didn't know what instruments sounded like anymore. That was my post-release experience.
I thought it was a very weird mix, but even at the time, but I still like it, I get so many compliments, even nowadays. And, I think it's me playing guitar and Chris playing bass was such a interesting, combination. And I had more freedom with the singing because I didn't have to keep the rhythm with drums. So. Right. Like, I think the live shows, I don't know, I felt more different, like my favorite toy or something. It's kind of, It's still fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was most excited about then playing the songs in front of people. I mean, the record, I was really proud of the record. I mean, I thought that we did what we set out to do, which was to kind of go crazy in the studio, and we really did that. And then I was just excited to like do it in real life. I remember just being excited about, this is great material to like take on tour.
For me, it's not a high point musically. I remember all of our records extremely fondly, and I think they sound cool. But it was maybe the most extreme version of a certain type of like allowing ourselves to become very obsessive and time consuming and on no budget. And I think that for me feels double-edged when I talk to younger musicians, and they even sometimes tell me they're inspired by literally that record, I'm like, be careful, because it's like, we nearly drove ourselves mad doing it.
To me, it's not like a high point per se, but I think it sits well to me in its time. Like, I think we managed to put something down that was real at that time. And I mean, I'm very proud of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Me too. I was so part of it that I'm proud of it. Like, I didn't miss any little parts, during the making of the record. Sometimes some people, like one of us take over too much or something, but the Runners 4 was the real team effort. I think I'm really proud that we went through together.
Visit lifeoftherecord.com for more information about Deerhoof. You'll also find a full transcript of this episode and a link to purchase the Runners 4, including the recent double LP reissue. Instrumental music by Charlie Don't Shake. Thanks for listening.